5 toughest games are arguably the Eagles on Monday Night Football, at Green Bay, at Seattle, at Detroit, and at Buffalo. Look at the games before their toughest games. They'll either be a game before or after, well, where they will be a significant favorite. I mean, the first month alone, they get 3 home games in the first month. That's a nice start, right? You get some momentum, get some belief. First 3 home games in the first month, they only face one star quarterback. And of the star quarterbacks, he may be the least intimidating, Jalen Hurts. Then you go to weeks 9, 10, and 11, the middle of the schedule. Well, they get a warm weather team and a dome team at home. Bucks and Saints in Chicago as it's getting cold. Oh, yeah, their toughest game is the game in Seattle against the Seahawks, but they even get a break there. They get extra rest Thursday to Monday. So, I mean, their toughest games are, to me, Lions, Packers. You know, you start looking at the very end of the season, they get the Packers and the Lions in week 16, 17. They're both at home. So it starts soft, home games, the middle, home games against warm weather and dome teams in a bye, and then it ends Packers and Lions at home. The NFL wants Chicago. They want a Chicago Bears team that is in the news. That's what it feels like to me, is they understand the power of Ben Johnson, the power of the brand, third biggest TV market in America. It's no gauntlet. They want Chicago to be captivating the entire way.
I'm glad Colin brought up the Chicago Bears media market, because I mentioned that same point earlier, and people got upset with me for talking about just how enormous the Chicago Bears fan base is within that media landscape. If they ever become a genuinely competitive team, it will absolutely explode. And it's interesting to hear Colin revisit this topic, because he had this take years ago when Caleb was first drafted, that the NFL wants Caleb to succeed, that they're giving him a soft landing with the schedule, that they're controlling who he gets to face. Malik Willis and the Tennessee Titans in Week 1, I think it was, and he went on this whole tangent, and then he had Peter Schrager come on the show, and they talked about how the league really wants that massive Chicago market and all of that, and that this is the schedule reflecting that. Now he's coming back with essentially the same angle, or very close to it. But it's really interesting because there was a belief floating around that this schedule was extremely difficult. I think either they said it was the hardest schedule or one of the hardest schedules, I don't recall exactly, but let's just say it was considered among the toughest. And that is not how the slate looks to me at all. Not even a little bit. Not at all, at all, at all. But before I dive any further, please, Chicago Bears fans, don't forget to subscribe and watch the full length of the video. When you all do that, viewership rockets, subscriber counts go through the roof, and it's not about chasing numbers, it's about being able to create Chicago Bears content that people genuinely want to watch and discuss. So we can have real, honest, grounded, unbiased conversations about the Chicago Bears. When you watch the video and subscribe at the same time, it creates such an avalanche effect, and it helps tremendously. And honestly, what we're doing here is, without a doubt, having some of the best conversations on all of YouTube. Across all of social media. The ratio of views to comments is absolutely, positively through the roof compared to any of the other channels out there. So we are literally having some of the deepest, most meaningful, highest quality discussions anywhere, and I'm just trying my best to make sure that we can become firmly rooted in the sports talk world, so please do consider subscribing. But yeah, I mean, I hear a lot about what Colin is saying, and here's my reaction. I've gone through some of the other schedules. I'm really just doing this live, pretty much every video you've been watching of mine lately, every single one so far up to this point, and this might change in some of my deeper dives later, but I'm looking at the schedule for the first time right now. This is the very first time I'm seeing the Chicago Bears schedule. And it's just like, yeah, I mean. Even any of the tougher matchups or harder games, I look at and think, it's a football game, right? And I keep saying this, if you're a great team, then it's just like, okay, sure. You've got to face the Eagles. You've got to face the Seahawks. You've got to face the Bills, right? It's like, okay, yeah, sure. That makes total sense. But then you also get to face the Dolphins. You get to face the Jets, you know? And I think what's actually probably more interesting about a schedule like the Chicago Bears is less about, because Colin's saying, oh, the toughest games, right? The Packers and the Lions. And those are obviously division opponents. And Bears fans know very well, just based on what they experienced last year, you cannot take any of these divisional games for granted. No matter how amazing you think Jordan Love is or isn't, or how bad you think Kyler Murray is, these NFC North Division games are just anyone's game, man. They're absolutely anyone's game. So trying to predict an NFC North game is a complete fool's errand. I'm not going to come here and say, well, they're going to beat the Packers twice this year. That's silly to me, to make any of those kinds of statements, because it's just like, who knows? Who honestly knows? And so, to me, I look at it more from this angle. Weirdly enough, I actually lock into the games on this schedule differently. I focus more on the Panthers, the Buccaneers, the Saints, and maybe even the Jaguars, where I'm just asking, how good or great are you going to be? I think the Panthers are actually trending in a great direction, but it's week 1. How gr? Eat are they? Right? I think they've made a lot of really interesting and cool moves, and it's like, okay, week 1, are you ready to get after it? Same thing even with a team like the Eagles in week 3. New coordinator. By week 3, are they comfortable? Is Mac Lemon worked into the offense? Is Jalen Hurts getting more comfortable with the system, etc., etc.? It's just like, where are they at that point? The Buccaneers absolutely had a down year last year, but they definitely have a pretty interesting roster. I think Baker is definitely a somewhat overrated quarterback in terms of people's perception of him, but he's certainly not trash. He's certainly not a quarterback on a team that you just look at and say, oh, well, we'll easily beat them. So the question is, how competitive are the Buccaneers this coming year? I really honestly don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I am absolutely a believer in what the Saints are doing and the momentum they have, but again, how great? I don't honestly know. I'm very optimistic and really do believe in and love what they're doing, and I'm a believer in Kellen Moore and Tyler Shock. But again, what does that look like right now? I don't know. I honestly don't. But by week 11, if they are a legitimate team and they're actually trending in the right direction like I believe they are, well then by week 11, okay, that'll be a more competitive game than originally meets the eye. Right? So that's all I'm getting at. And again, I know when you're a Bears fan, or no matter what team you root for, when you're looking at some of these games against the Buccaneers, the Saints, and the Panthers, you're thinking, oh, we're clearly better than those teams. Oh, blah 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 blah. And it's like, I don't disagree with that, right? At the core of it, I believe the Bears are better than the Saints. That's not controversial whatsoever. I believe the Bears are better than the Buccaneers. But when you're talking about a long season and a full schedule, look, I just think to myself, those games, weirdly enough, end up being more of a wild card than they've ever been in years past. Because we always know, right? There are plenty of games throughout the season that you win but should have lost, or that you lose but should have won. We've got endless examples of that. Every single team, every single year. You're like, how the heck did you just lose to that team right now? We know that. But I think those teams that we used to automatically circle as wins, again, how do you evaluate the Saints right now? I know your gut tells you, oh, they're nothing. They've got nothing. And I just don't know how true that is right now. Maybe that'll prove to be true by week 11, but I don't know how true it is right now. I really, really don't. The Carolina Panthers genuinely built a lot of momentum last year. And if they're able to build off that momentum this year, with Dave Cann, Alesh maintaining continuity with Bryce Young and so on, and they upgraded that defense. I know my gut reaction isn't to say, well, the Panthers are a great team. They're going to be a top 3 team in the NFL. That's not where my mind automatically goes. But is this the most competitive Panthers team they've had in, essentially since Cam Newton? My answer is yes. What does that look like in week 1 against the Chicago Bears? My answer is I honestly don't know, and I'm okay with not knowing. So I actually think it's those games, because again, our minds will automatically lock onto the Eagles, the Packers, the Seahawks, the Lions. And it's like, yeah, for sure, those games are obviously the marquee matchups. But I think what will ultimately make or break the Chicago Bears, in terms of how great they can be, where they land in terms of playoff seeding, whether it's a wild card spot or winning the division, etc., it's going to be these other games. It's going to be these other contests. And it's going to be interesting to see how good those other teams actually are. Because, weirdly enough, yeah, I feel like really only one of those teams, one of those random teams, I'll say, that I'm kind of like, yeah, there's essentially zero chance you're going to lose. That's the Jets. Probably the Dolphins, but I don't know. I'm keeping the door open for the Dolphins, maybe, because I do love their athleticism. I'm intrigued by Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator. And I do like Malik Willis a lot. I don't know if they have the roster to actually support those guys, but I'm like, I don't know. Leaving that door open, but not holding my breath by any stretch of the imagination. So, yeah. I don't think the Bears have this tough schedule that everybody was trying to make it out to be, but they do have a pretty interesting schedule. They definitely have a really, really interesting schedule, because they have a lot of these in-between teams where you're kind of like, well, I don't know. Like, how, this is actually kind of interesting. Again, who are the Panthers right now? Who are the Saints right now? Don't let your past understanding of who those teams are lead you too much right now. Right? Don't, because they could do the same thing about the Bears. And it's like, things have changed drastically for the Bears. And things are starting to slowly, drastically change for some of these other teams as well. So it's a pretty fascinating schedule. And I do also agree with Colin Cowherd where he talks about how you play a tough game, but it's followed by, or preceded by, an easy game, right? Like, sandwiched between the Jets, the Packers, the Falcons, or something. Or extra rest, a Monday night football game against the Seahawks after a Thursday night football game against the Patriots. We'll see how good the Patriots are. A lot of people think the Patriots are nowhere close to being as good as they were last year. So we'll see about that, right? Also, who knows what else is coming out of the news cycle with the Patriots. But also, ultimately, the divisional games, obviously the Vikings, the Lions, and the Packers. I see no reason why those games won't also continue to be kind of a free-for-all, honestly. I see no reason why not. Again, I know each individual team. This has been the case since 2024, since I started really making videos. Every single one, every Vikings video, every Packers, Lions, and Bears video, everyone is very confident that they're winning the division, that they're beating the other teams, that they're going to go like 4-2 in the division or 5-1. And it just ends up being kind of crazy. It ends up being very crazy. And I don't see why that's going to change, honestly. I don't see why that'll change, which I think is awesome. I think the NFC North being a gauntlet is really, really great. Technically, the biggest wild card is the Minnesota Vikings because of Kyler Murray, J.J. McCarthy, maybe even Carson Wentz. So you're just kind of like, I don't know. But you get to play them in week 2, and it's like, do they have any of this figured out yet? Do they have any of it figured out yet? Probably not. And then by the time you're playing them in week 18, it's like, that game might not even matter anymore. So even if they do figure it out and they're ready to go, it's like, okay, well, it's the final game of the season, who cares? It might not matter at all for the Bears. So. Yeah. But, technically, that stretch, weeks 15, 16, 17, and 18, Bills, Packers, Lions, Vikings. That could be for real. That could be a legitimate tough stretch where you're just like, man, the Bears really need to go 2-2 in these next 4 games, or win 2 out of the next 4, if they want to be able to get the 2 seed or, whatever the situation may be. And it's like, yeah, okay, at the Bills, then you're at home for 2 important division games, then you're at Minnesota. But how good is Minnesota, right? Who's the quarterback? What's the situation? Is it a race to the bottom for them where they're like, we want to lose because we're ready to draft a new quarterback? Like, alright, we tried Kyler Murray, we tried J.J. McCarthy, we tried Carson Wentz. Okay, now we want to be able to draft our quarterback of the future. By all means, Chicago Bears, beat us. Like, that is a legitimate scenario as well. So, it's like I think the schedules, at the end of the day, the more you talk about them and the more you look at them, you can always figure out another scenario that can pop up, right? Another scenario that you didn't even originally think of. And it's like, okay. So, yeah. But in no way do I think of this as a tough schedule where I'm just kind of like, I don't know, I think it's going to be hard for the Bears to find their way. Everyone was like, I think they could be better, but they could also lose more games, or they could win fewer games. That was a common take, which I don't even necessarily disagree with, that mentality or that idea that you could win fewer games but still be a better team, etc. I think that's always on the table for any of these teams, because wins and losses are always going to fluctuate. But I just don't see this as some uphill battle. I don't see the schedule itself as being like, okay, yeah, man, this is a stark contrast between last year and this year. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Chicago Bears, the schedule, the fact that Colin is saying the NFL wants the Chicago Bears to win and to be great so they can tap into all those Chicago Bears fans in the massive city of Chicago, the second city? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.